Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'd like to take a quick minute to thank all of you that have subscribed to the channel. We're quickly approaching the 100 subscriber mark, and even though that's not a huge amount, knowing people find value in my videos gives me the energy and motivation to keep making them. If you are not subscribed yet, I would greatly appreciate if you took the time to do so and support a young channel such as mine. Thank you. Today's topic is something that might end up disrupting the precious metals markets in a major way in 2023. We'll be having a look at the ongoing protests in the South American nation of Peru, one of the planet's major suppliers of copper and silver. I won't go deep into the political side of things, as this is not a geopolitics channel, but I will briefly touch on the causes of the protests and where we are at the moment, as it is pertinent to our interest, which is figuring out how all of this will affect the silver and gold markets. Let's get into it. The story begins in October of 2020, when an elementary school teacher, born in a family of peasants, by the name of Pedro Castillo, announced his candidacy to the Peruvian presidency with the backing of the Free Peru party. As it is often the case with people of modest means in Latin America, his political views are left-wing or even extreme left-wing, according to some. He ran a campaign targeted at gathering the support of the poor and disenfranchised of Peru, a strata of society that mostly lives outside the major population centers and has for a long while been the victim of corruption and neglect by the central government. One of the main promises of his campaign was a fairer redistribution of the revenues from the mining industry, one of the major pillars of the economy. Fast forward to July of 2021, and Castillo is sworn in as president. The trouble starts even before the newly elected president took office, and on July 23rd, 2021, protesters from the local communities near La Bamba's copper mine, that accounts for 2% of global copper supplies, blocked the road, claiming that they see little benefit from the wealth generated by the mining operation. The on and off protests and roadblocks finally forced the company to announce on the 3rd of December that it was shutting down production starting mid-December 2021. And this isn't an isolated case. All across the country, protesters are threatening to cut off the roads between mines and ports of export. Needless to say that Castillo was not a favorite of the elites, the right-wingers, and did not have many friends on the international stage either, as his rhetoric and actions were rubbing Washington the wrong way as well. His presidency was a constant fight between the office of the presidency and the Congress, with numerous attempts at removal from office and impeachment. This all came to a head on December 7, 2022, when Castillo tried to dissolve Congress but ended up being arrested and replaced by one of his ministers, Dina Boluarte. The same day, the protests began, and they are continuing to this very day with no end in sight at the moment, and starting to resemble a full-fledged revolution in the country, as the police and military are clamping down hard on the protesters, killing over 60 and injuring hundreds more. This revolution might even have a chance of success, with a majority of Peruvians supporting the protests and considering the response from authorities as being excessive. This movement is not all about this one man, the president, but runs far, far deeper. Listen to what a protester told The Guardian, a British newspaper. Daniel, 32, an indigenous mine worker from the city of Abancay in the southern central Apurimac province, did not participate in the mass protests that swept over Peru in 2020 after President Martín Vizcarra was ousted. But I did take part this time, in my town, to support my people, indigenous people, who have been treated like garbage for centuries by the elites. These aren't just people that are mad about their candidate not winning. These are people with real grievances, people that have been ignored and forgotten for centuries and taken for granted as cheap labor force. Peru is sitting atop a volcano, and I'm not talking about El Misti. While it's easy for us to tell them that socialism and communism never works from the comfort of our Western living rooms, those people on the ground there are feeling desperate, impoverished, robbed of their resources and their voice, and they are pretty angry. The repercussions for the world's metal supply and prices could be significant. Peru might very well go the way of Venezuela. Some are seeing the writing on the wall already. Glencore, one of the largest mining companies on Earth, announced on the 16th of February that they are selling their 23% stake in Volcan, a zinc and silver miner in the country. I would argue that Peru is even more important to the metals markets than Venezuela is to the oil market. I'll read a few lines from the Department of Commerce's website. Peru is the world's second largest producer of copper, silver and zinc, and Latin America's largest producer of gold. Peru is amongst the primary producers of mineral commodities in the world. Abundant mineral resources such as copper, gold, silver, and lithium are found mainly in the mountains. Look at this chart and see what happened to the oil production in Venezuela in the past 5 years. It more than halved. Should Peru go the same way, what do you think will happen to its production? We are already seeing major disruptions and players leaving the market. The same Las Bambas mine that we mentioned earlier is again being blocked, and other mines are suffering as well, including another major copper mine, Antapacay. In this graph here of power consumption by individual mines, we can clearly see what the impact of these protests are on the operations, with Antapacay and Las Bambas nosediving while the other mines are suffering on and off. What does this mean for the price of silver? Well, many things. First of all, we have the direct impact on the silver mines in the world's second largest silver producer. Secondly, we all know that the majority of silver is being mined as a byproduct of zinc and copper mining. Exactly some of those mines affected as we speak. Thirdly, this may trigger a rise in the price of copper, as we can see in this CNBC article, which states that analysts see short-term strength and the long-term generational shift in copper prices. If you watched my previous videos, you might remember I stated a couple of weeks ago that as copper gets more expensive, we can expect increased demand for silver. Copper is mainly used as a cheaper alternative to silver, as it is the second most conductive metal, but should the price go through a generational shift, as the article would suggest, I have strong reasons to believe that the price of silver will go through the same process. Even without these events, the supply of metal was very tight. Now imagine what it would mean if 10% of the world's copper supply would suddenly become inaccessible, along with 12.5% of the silver supply. What would happen then? It would trigger a massive increase in the price of both of these commodities, a squeeze that we have not seen in many decades. For the sake of the people of Peru, I hope that the two parties reach an agreement and that the situation de-escalates. I would not want their misfortune to be my good fortune, but I am not able to control that. In conclusion, we need to pay very close attention to what is happening in Peru, and should we see signs of a new Venezuela situation developing, make sure we're prepared for it. The links to the articles can be found in the description below. Thank you for watching, and if you got to this point, you might as well give the video a like and subscribe if you found any of this useful.